accidents if this were approved. As was said earlier, we have a number of children in our neighborhood, some of whom take the bus, that's recognized, but many also walk across Greenway Road because it's convenient. We all appreciate convenience and conveniences. They do too. And they will walk across at this location right by where the rezoning is being proposed, and it further creates a hazard as far as a safety concern for these young children, primarily going to the middle school. There's no median cut there that was mentioned previously. I will forego my comments on that, but it's very awkward turning into the subdivision as well as coming out. And for vehicular traffic, if you add a business property here, business zoning, that increases somewhat the business traffic and the vehicular traffic. We have one entrance into our subdivision, one entrance and one entrance only, because this was a PUD that was approved years ago. If you are in a regular non-PUD neighborhood where you may have some small pockets of businesses around, and we see that as Fairhope residents, you have multiple entrance points into those neighborhoods typically if it's not a PUD development. We don't have that luxury. We have only one entrance, and this is right smack dab at the entrance point. We strongly oppose it and would appeal to the commission not to approve this rezoning request. I thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. Yes, sir. If you'll please state your name and your address, please.
My name's Michael Evero. I live at 302 Blackfriars, and the development that they're trying to do backs up immediately behind the house I live in. So from me to wanting to have rezoned is allowed to proceed there, I think they're going to want to do a driveway cut or something that does away with the greenbelt area on Huntington Woods as you pull in on Farrington. And I agree with everything these other people have said. I think it's a bad idea, and it's just not going to, ultimately, I think what you're going to see is a diminution in value of real estate of the 4 or 5 houses that front this area they're planning to rezone. And I think that's a bad idea. Anytime, if it were a half a mile away, that would be one thing, but if you're talking 50, 75 feet, no, I don't think it's good at all. And that's what we're talking about. You guys need to go out there and see it. Somebody needs to go out there.
We have.
Okay, well, my house then, my fence is right there on that property line, right smack in the dab of the middle of that property line, right there. So I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak about this item? Yes, sir. If you'd be so kind to state your name and your address for our record, please, sir.
My name is Michael Bragg. I live at 500 Charing Cross in the Huntington Woods subdivision. I don't really have a whole lot of information to add to what the other speakers have said, other than the fact that I'm the HOA president, and an awful lot of people have in the neighborhood come up and express concerns. And I just wanted to, as the HOA president, pass those on to you, that in addition to diminishing our neighborhood, we're really concerned about the traffic going into the high school and over to the middle school.
So if you have any comments or wish to make a motion,
I was going to ask a question or comment.
go ahead.
Wayne, I went down there, and I am of the opinion that this property is too small to be a B4. If you want to take a look at what's allowed as a B4 down there, we're looking at things like secondary school, educational facility. This property is 3/4 of an acre. It simply doesn't make sense to put a B4 up there. I can see perhaps changing it from one zoning classification to the other as being the owner's right, but this does not seem to be a good fit for, quote, an administrative office to be fronting on a major road at the beginning of a subdivision. It just doesn't once it's changed in zoning, it can become any one of those things, but only one or two of those things would actually fit a B4. And I was thinking if there's a way that this could be given a less ambitious change in zoning, a B4 just seems to be a very big jump for a property this small.
Well, if you look at the zoning districts, I mean, the B4, the 4 category is a bit of a misnomer. It's limited to professional office and business uses. It's not a restaurant, it's not restaurants. I understand the concern about the size of that project. The applicant, I wish he was here to kind of explain what his vision is for the property, because I'm not, the only I've been told is that what's in the application, and when he met with me was there was going to be an office for his business, for his personal business. So from that standpoint, I really can't add any more information about what his intentions are, what size building he intends to build there, or anything of that nature, so I can't answer those questions. I do understand the concern with the neighbors, the concern regarding a commercial entity. Right now, it's R1, and the whole area through there is R1, which does not seem like a very good district for it either. R1 single family, having it on 98 doesn't seem practical either. So I understand both those concerns. But as far as the intended use and the size of the property not being compatible with the intended use, I can't speak to the applicant and what his desire is for his size building or what kind of building he intends to place there. I just simply don't know.
Would you think it appropriate to defer this until the developer can come forward and give us some more information?
Yes, sir, I think that would be appropriate, so he can come and speak to the planning commission directly, and so we have a clear understanding about what he intends to do there. And that seems like that would be a reasonable thing to do. Yes, sir.
I have a statement and a question, Wayne, just based on your Fairhope Comprehensive Plan guidance. You said typically commercial nodes are defined as compact concentration of commercial land within a relatively small area. Ideally, such nodes are located around and near intersections of major cities and roadways. I can't think of a commercial node or anything that's around this other property to kind of cohesively build this
Right.
node.
I think according to the comprehensive plan, there is one, I believe, at the Twin Beach Road and the Greeno Road location. The difficulty is that node is not defined as far as size, and that's it says a node, and it depends on where you're at about what size of and a node's basically a commercial center. That's basically what it means. It does not give a lot of guidance on.
I agree. I think Twin Beach in that intersection is definitely a commercial node.
Right.
I don't feel like in front of the school is a commercial node, especially with the residential easement and access because of the traffic. But
Right.
those are just my thoughts.
Sure.
I wanted to kind of inform other people about I know our plan, our comprehensive guideline is not something we, have to stick to, but it is a direction for us.
Right, and we have the village centers and the village concept, and the nodes are a part of that as well. Nodes a little bit smaller than the village center. The one thing that we'd like to do as we go forward, as we look at these comprehensive plans, is maybe provide some criteria. This is just what we'll be recommending later on, some criteria about how far that node goes out and how it would affect property away from that node, so we can provide a much better, clear delineation about where we think the commercial is appropriate and where it's not appropriate.
One thing, Wayne, that I'll mention to you is, in the past, we would pretty much carte blanche deny these applications. And the thought being that once you approve, you're opening up Pandora's box. And the things that people in all of the town hall meetings always agree with is, number one, protect the central business district of downtown Fairhope, if that's what makes Fairhope Fairhope. And number two, keep Greeno Road from looking like Airport Boulevard. And the number one is pretty easy on most of your decisions as far as making recommendations to the city council on zonings. The second one is a little more difficult because everyone says, hey, this isn't a great place for a R1 single-family residence. Who wants to put a residence right here on Greeno? But then on the other hand, you zone it commercial and piece by piece. If this piece gets zoned commercial, I can guarantee you we're going to have, a minimum of a half dozen applications the next month on Greeno, coming commercial. I've been on this board for 17 years, and shame on us for not having addressed this. We've tried it once or twice. Once we got shot down by the city council. But I think we need to have some type of an overlay or some type of specific requirements on Greeno Road that when we rezone these items, B4, B2, or whatever we happen to rezone them, if they're in essence not decent quality for R1 and we have to rezone them, I would like to see us have some type of either an overlay or specific zoning requirements dealing with those lots specifically that would deal with the buffering, between Greeno Road and the buildings, how the buildings face, so that basically, what we've done so far is we've just approved PUDs. And with those PUDs, what we've looked at mainly has been the setback of the building, which way the buildings face, the green space between the buildings and Greeno, and how people get the ingress and egress. With that said, I saw Deborah Green in here a few minutes earlier, who's got 2.7 acres and doesn't qualify for the third acre, and this one obviously doesn't have the 3 acres.
For the PUD, right.
For the PUD. So if we could come up with some type of just Greeno Road, ordinance, so that we can do what the public wants us to. On the one hand, not require people to build residences on a road where people don't want to live, but on the other hand, not develop Greeno Road into Airport Boulevard. I
Right.
think would be a fantastic thing.
Well, and as you might talk about this afternoon, there are several things you can do to make this, if you're going to have commercial development more appealing. I know concern is the appearance on Greeno Road of being one big, long commercial strip mall with parking in the front, buildings in the back. One thing we could look at is requiring parking in the rear and have the buildings facing the front with a landscaping, heavy landscaping between the building and the highway. There's things you can do with that. We can also look at orientation of the buildings. You can also have mid-block parking, so the buildings are, the parking's in the middle, and so you have the buildings close to the road, but also the buildings facing an internal street. There's a lot of things we can do with that to make that a little more appealing. I would also strongly recommend that we look at looking at the nodes, as Ms. McKellar had spoke about earlier, and really defining where we want the commercial development to go. Obviously, Greeno Road being a major thoroughfare, there will be commercial development there, but I think it's important that we clearly articulate what kind of development we want, how we want it to look. Want to be mixed use or a village, those kind of things are things I think would be very appropriate. So when we do have further rezonings for more intense rezonings, we could guide those to those locations that have been clearly delineated by the comprehensive plan and others, but also look at the overlay like you're speaking about to really improve the aesthetic appearance of Greeno Road. I understand the concern with having the strip Airport Boulevard kind of look to it, and we definitely don't want that. So that's something we could certainly look at. That would be, some of those things would be a relatively easy ordinance to propose. Where if you're talking about orientation of buildings and parking, those things, that's something that we could certainly do. It would not be that large of a task to take on. The comprehensive plan and fleshing out the village centers and the nodes is a little more work involved with that, but we could certainly look at the overlay.
I'd like to see something like that because I'd hate to vote for one and then open up a
Sure.
precedent.
And I think that would be absolutely a reasonable approach to take if you wanted to table this one until we have a chance to look at the overlay and doing something like that. I think that might be a reasonable approach with this one. I will tell you, we do have another rezoning coming next month that's been applied and has submitted for next month across the street from this one. So that's something to be aware of, too. One other factor here is that also we do have buffering between commercial and residential, that a buffer would be required in this particular case. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. But as far as the overlay, I think it would be absolutely appropriate for us to make that endeavor and bring something back to the Planning Commission to look at before going further with further applications of rezonings on Greeno Road or in this vicinity.
Wayne, could we also put in an architectural guideline along with that overlay project that we're looking into?
You certainly could. That's something that we could look at as well. If that's the wishes of the Planning Commission, we could look at that. And that can get a little tricky sometimes. I know in my previous experience in Walton County, you had architectural guidelines with colors and those things like that, and what you got on 98 in Walton County was, everything was the same color, and didn't look very appealing. It was very generic looking, and so we modified those to allow more flexibility. I think, depending on what, what your feelings are as far as architectural guidelines, we could definitely do that. If you don't like flat roofs or metal buildings, there's all kind of things like that we could look at. But we could certainly explore that as well. I would ask if that's the route we want to go, if we could get direction from the Planning Commission about exactly what you want us to look at. I know we've talked about buffering, we talked about parking. From the architectural standpoint, what things do you want to see architecturally? We could definitely look at those and draft something up for your review and consideration.
That'd be excellent. Thank you.
Well, I will say, Wayne, I think you're right, though, that the transition from residential to Greeno Road, a professional business setting, is probably the least impact on the residents. I hate to say that to the folks here that are living there, but if you were to put a driveway in from that corner, I mean, there's a distance you've got to be from Greeno Road before you can turn in anyway, which may, in fact, create a space for the building in front of, facing the front anyway.
Yeah, as far as the driveway location, I doubt strongly that DOT will allow a driveway on to Greeno Road, and so it obviously would be on Farringdon, but you're right, I'm not sure what that distance factor is, but in this case, it would probably be to the very back of the lot, because typically it's going to be longer than the width of the lot, the length of the lot, and so it would have to be at the very, very back of the lot. Now, with that, you have buffering and that's required in the back of the lot, which may further impact that location of the driveway.
Come back to what you said. Size.
Anyway, it's not a fast food place.
No, it's not. But it would be, as far as, the overlay, I think that'd be a very prudent step to take. And that's something that I think was on our radar as well. But I think it'd be something that we could look at and probably make some of these buildings much more aesthetically pleasing and attractive. I think the difficulty here, you mentioned a minute ago, Mr. Turner, was that the fact that this is for R1, it's not practical on 98. So then what do you do next? And that's kind of the conundrum we find ourselves in a lot of times.
Of course, B4 with the buffering in the rear, the distance for the drive and everything else, not looking real practical either.
No.
Put a trailer in there.
Emily, what is the date of our next meeting? Do you have that?
I do. It would be May 1st.
So that's less than 30 days then. So we can postpone this to the next meeting then.
Yeah, table will continue however you normally handle those businesses. That'd be fine with us. And if we give a date certain, I don't think we have to re-advertise. It'll be a date certain, be postponed to the next meeting.
As long as it's less than 30 is what I'm remembering. Does somebody want to make a motion to put this off to the next meeting?
I'll make a motion to continue the discussion to the next meeting.
Do I have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add too, in the meantime, we can also be kind of looking at some of the overlay standards and maybe have a chance to kind of maybe talk about those at the end of the meeting next month, if that's appropriate.
That'd be excellent.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a suggestion? Wayne, could you possibly, you said we had another application coming up next week, next month across the street.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk to that applicant and sort of tell them about what we're thinking about? And
I sure will.
before we have to go through all of this again,
Right.
and kind of get all the parties, the property owners in that area on the same page, and maybe we can reach a solution that'll be happy for everybody.
Be glad to do that. Yes, sir.
And Wayne, I was just curious, how long does it take to do an overlay?
Well, drafting it is probably the easier part. The more difficult part is getting it approved and going through the process. Basically, it'd be an amendment to the zoning ordinance. It would need to get a recommendation, it need to be advertised and get a recommendation from the city council, from the planning commission, and then adopted by the city council. But but many times when you have overlays, you do have a little bit of, there are concerns by property owners and so forth that may have some concerns about that. But
But, you know, I mean, a practical time frame is hard to say. I can tell you, with some of the requirements that we've talked about, that's not difficult to draft up. Architectural standards, we can look at those, and that's not difficult to draft up. The lengthy part would be with the public hearings required and the meetings, the Planning Commission and City Council.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is,
One question. For point of information, if you're going to be revisiting this, unlike the applicant who chose not to show up, and we all did, we will have to show up again and again at the council meeting. Will we be notified when this will come back so that we can come back again?
the meeting is May
May
1st, May
1st
Day.
at 5 o'clock.
Will he be ready then?
We don't know if he'll be ready or not. He better be.
Yeah. Well, we just don't want to be
We will.
coming to a bunch of meetings. You guys are highly paid to come here. We're not.
I'll split my salary with you if you come
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I am sure, okay?
All right, thank you, sir.
But if we could just make sure that we are notified again? We got 1 week's notice, by the way, on this
You will
one,
not get a notification other than me telling you right now. that the
May
meeting is
5th.
May 1st.
May 1st.
Yes, sir.
First Monday.
Happy May Day.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Can I have 3 minutes, sir, since you mentioned me and Reno Road?
At the end of the meeting, under old or new business, we bring that up, be no problem.
I got family waiting for me. This is the thing I came up here to listen to, so I'll just go ahead and talk to you about it.
Well,
As far as an overlay district and management of Reno Road, I get that, and I get that some people are scared to death that it's gonna be Airport Boulevard. I don't know what Mr. Street's gonna do. My husband and I came up here, we had a great PowerPoint presentation. Excuse me, showed you exactly what we wanted to do. Nothing was gonna change from the way our property looked. And we have 3 ALDOT approved entrances and egresses. And what you're doing is you're comparing along Reno Road, apples and oranges. If people keep their property nice along Reno Road, it's because we have respect for ourselves and our community, but we don't have to if you keep telling us no. We don't. You have no idea what it can look like. You like overlay districts. Holly, I know you like them. Some of the other of you like them. But you've got a medical overlay district, and every time I turn around, there's a medical facility approved outside of that medical district. And those people, although there are provisions for other things that could possibly go in there, they're stuck. They're in a virtual jail because of what is not allowed. They can't resell their property unless they get in groups to get enough property to sell to do something medically. You've got something on the end of the agenda tonight on Reno Road. I realize it's in the county, but 10,500-foot facility, medical facility on Reno Road. And this approval of this thing across the street, just kind of cattywampus from where we are. Another medical facility there. So you're approving things left and right outside of an overlay district, but you want to put us in an overlay district. That ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry, but it's not. So just think about what it is that you want before the citizens who own property along Reno Road just get fed up. Between 1961 and 1978, just in those short years, my husband's father came up before this commission 7 times. 7 times. Part of it he was by himself, another, on a number of occasions, he was with the entire group of property owners along Reno Road. The answer was no, 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 no. 7 times. And I'm going in reverse order now. I'm starting from 1961, going back. Your grandfather sat in that chair right there. He said no. So you're saying no too. But be careful.
I haven't said no to anything. I don't know what you're talking about. I told you that I liked your project. I like these, but thank you.
The Board of Adjustments get a special exception to do a planned unit development on a business that has been there for 86 years. Park light, well landscaped, nothing's going to happen. So that's what I'm saying is that you are dealing with apples and oranges when you put everybody in the same category along Reno Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody agree.
And by the way, I never voted against yours, and I told you that I loved it, by the way. Next item.
You wanted the special exception, leave.
Next item on the agenda, that's not a no. Next item on the agenda is SD 1639.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a multiple occupancy project, a MOP project. The name is Graceway Senior Living Facility. It's a 48-unit project located on the west side of Bishop Road, just north of Edwards Avenue. It's located inside the Fairhope corporate limits. It's zoned R5, High-Density Residential Dwelling Unit District. The acreage is 5.44 acres. We have reviewed this application, and it is consistent with the MOP regulations we have. However, there are some issues with the LID, the Low Impact Development standards, and they've asked for a waiver from those. In your application package, you have a letter from our consultant on those, and then also a justification letter from Dewberry Purple Rish, Andy Bobie, who is the project engineer for the site. We find it consistent with the requirements of the MOP. However, based on the information we received from our engineering consultant, we feel like they could do, and so what we would recommend is give them opportunity to try to convince the Planning Commission why they can't, and then we can talk about our position after they go with that one. But it does meet the MOP requirements except for the lid requirements, and that's the only issue that we have with it.
Thank you, Wayne. Just for the audience, the LID, we request that people have 10 LID techniques utilized, and if they don't, we can grant a waiver, but the waiver is not granted based upon, do we like the developer or not? Do we want the developer to spend more money or less? But do the actual soils allow, and the property itself allow for those LID techniques to be utilized? So that's the question, one of the questions we'll be looking at. But you'd like to speak on behalf of the developer?
Yes, sir. I'm Andy Bobie. I'm the design engineer for the project. Wayne's correct in what he was saying is that we provided 8 of the 10 LID requirements. We did request a waiver from 2, which was bioretention, and I don't recall the other one. It functions very similar to bioretention. We have a poor perk rate on site, which is why I was recommending not to use those. In conversations today with the reviewing engineer, there's the potential that it could work. There's the potential that it could not work. What we would like to do is request that we work through those issues with staff, with the reviewing engineer. We would like the opportunity either for a contingent approval with those items or potentially tabling the project to allow us to work through those, because the comments didn't come till Thursday that we were being denied. So we just want adequate time to address them.
Okay. All right. If you don't mind staying up front, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing now.
Sure.
And we may have some more questions after the public hearing. Like to open the public hearing for this item. This is the senior living right off of Edwards Avenue. Does anybody wish to speak to this item at this time? Nobody. I thought we were going to at least have one lady here tonight from one of the earlier meetings. In that case, I will close the public hearing at this time and open the meeting up for the commissioners to discuss this item.
Thanks. This just sounds like there's a debate between civil engineers about the runoff and the LID standards. I personally don't like waiving LID standards because it's one of the few controls that we have. But I don't want to get into a geological exposition here to find out. Is there no way that you can make some kind of an accommodation between what our LID standards say rather than a waiver?
Well, the potential there is putting in bioretention that would work functionally as a filter. Right now, the elevations for the hydraulics of this to function haven't been hashed out. I don't know the exact elevations of what we will end up having because I haven't had time to address those. this could either, it could function, or it could not. It has to tie to our detention pond, and there's the potential that the detention pond could backflow into this, making it not functional. Those are details that I have to work out and determine whether that actually does work or not. And I'm more than happy to work through it with staff and reviewing engineer to address that item, but I haven't had time to address that today.
Wayne, will you feel comfortable with us approving subject to his working those two LID items out with the staff and the city engineer? Or would you feel more comfortable if we put this off to the next meeting and let it be hashed out?
I think that if Andy and Larry and myself can get in the same room and discuss these, I think we can get those worked out. I mean, I think it's a matter of physical characteristics of the property, and I think we can probably come to a conclusion. We're dealing with two, and so I think we could probably get that resolved fairly easily.
Billy, you comfortable with that? Ken, are you comfortable with that? Let the three, the city engineer, their engineer, and our staff member work out the LID requirements.
Well, you're saying go ahead and approve it as long as they can meet those
No, I was saying
conditions.
approve it subject to them meeting the conditions, subject to, making the city engineer and the staff member, or do you think?
The reason I say it's cleaner, it comes back up, what if they can't approve?
Then they'd have to come back.
Somebody has to decide whether the waivers can be granted or not.
Okay.
Probably should just table.
In that case, probably should be tabled to next month. Yes, sir.
Can I just say one thing to that? Kind of my plan is that we're either going to agree that it does or agree that it doesn't work. That's really the only two options
Right,
with
but what I'm
that.
saying, what our attorney is saying is that if y'all agree that it doesn't, that y'all don't have the authority, that only the planning commission can agree that it doesn't.
The waiver can be granted.
Can grant the waiver. So, all right. Yes, sir.
The engineer reviewed it. First off, they did a great job on the design. We just went back and forth, and it was very last minute. I think it might be possible, but I told him he's ultimately the design professional, and he's got to run those calcs. He knows them better than I do. But I think Andy and I will be able to work it out, hopefully. But I don't know whether it will or will not work until he runs those numbers. I don't have the software to run all the numbers. Just looking at elevations, I do think it has a possibility of working. But if it doesn't, we're going to be here either now or next week asking for that waiver, because it is the only other thing that you could put into place there. There's a lot of the LID practices that don't work for every site, and I've spoken with several of y'all about having to look at that, because nobody wants to skimp on the LID practices. There's just several that don't work for every single site. So they're down to the one or two that we might be able to squeeze on this site.
I have a question. So what I'm trying to follow is the detention pond the only thing that's going to work for this area? Is this?
They've done more than just the detention.
Right,
outlet.
but
They're
for
up
what we're
to 8.
looking at says detention pond.
Yeah,
And
I'll
I
let
know
Andy
that
talk
I've
about
read
what
your
they've
LID techniques, but I was wondering if it's just that's the safest bet, or?
No, we've actually implemented, there's 15 total that are listed in the sub-regs. We've done 8 that we've been able to make function. The requirement's 10. These last 2, we haven't been able to, we're of the opinion that they don't work due to soil conditions and elevations in our ponds. But based on some information.
It's just so large, that's why I'm wondering.
Well, that's to comply with the drainage regulations.
Well,
It's
that's the
required to be.
And we always need to remember the LID is more of a treatment. The drainage
that's
comes
correct.
under the subdivision ordinance and doesn't have anything to do with the LID. That's just so that the runoff after a 100-year flood post-development will be no greater than pre-development.
Correct.
The LID is more of a treatment of getting it in the ground and filter it, et cetera.
Well, yeah, I understand it'd be great if we knew all their different areas of where the LID techniques were taking place instead of just detention pond. I've read the techniques they're using, but I didn't know if it was just because of the slope of the land or.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like that the matter here is running the calculations, and it's a very black and white, either the calculations work or not. Would it be appropriate to say in some fashion if they run the calculations? I mean, it's not a, I don't think it's a decision. It's either do they work or they not work with the calculations.
We could have maybe, Ken, what if we approved subject to 10 LID techniques being utilized, and then if they use all 10 techniques, they're not looking for a waiver. If they can't do but 8, then they would have to come back at our May 1st meeting so we could grant the waiver as the commission.
And I just want to add, one of the reasons that I brought this up is that since I've been on the commission, which has only been several months, this issue about the LID waivers and people coming in has come up almost at every single meeting. And what happens is one engineer over here who's brilliantly educated says to another engineer who's brilliantly educated, it's not going to work. And we're sitting up there between them trying to figure out what does work. So I'm just hoping what we can do is sort of gradually bring this together so we can say, now there's a precedent. We had this come up before, and we found out that if you do a sand filter, this actually does work. You won't waste your money. Something like that which will move us along the path. That's the reason I brought up what I did.
Sure. And I think in this case, it's a matter of running the calculations. It's just modeling it, and if it says yes or no, that's pretty straightforward, I think, in this particular case.
Somebody wish to make
Wayne, is this a site plan review we're looking at, or?
No. This is a multiple occupancy project, which is a review that's required by the subregs for 3 or more units of.
It's a subdivision.
Basically that's right, basically a subdivision, that's right. And those requirements are in the subdivision regulation. It lists out there what you, and in your staff report, I've gone through each one of the requirements for the MOP.
Would this be considered a major subdivision or a minor subdivision?
It's considered a multiple occupancy project, not either one of those. It's its own.
I'm just wondering, because the site plan, I mean, without elevations on the site plan, I couldn't comment about any of it. So I know you said it's tight, I understand that, but,
right.
You can always raise the site, too.
And this one's been I think it's been tabled a couple times, if you may recall. I think this started back in December, I think, wasn't it, Andy? This project started in December or November. But it's a standalone approval that's required by the subregs, and in that you have to comply with the normal submission requirements, which includes the LID requirements for any subdivision.
I'll make a motion to approve it, as long as it meets the 10 LIDs. If not, we'll see it again next month.
Motion to approve, subject to it meeting the 10 LIDs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion.
Is that a nay or a?
That's a nay.
So 2, 4, 6, 7 ayes and 1 nay on that. All right, next item on the agenda, SD 1709.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a public hearing to request, to consider the request of SE Civil Engineering for plat approval of Manson Subdivision. It's a 2-lot minor subdivision. And just to note, the minor subdivisions are not covered by the moratorium, which is why this is being presented. This is a pretty straightforward minor subdivision application. The only question comes in, they've met the flow model requirements, but the question is they're requesting a waiver for there's 2 lots. One fronts a publicly maintained right-of-way, and the second one fronts an alley. And the applicant is requesting a waiver to our requirement that all lots shall front a publicly maintained right-of-way. And the burden of is upon the applicant to present an extraordinary hardship, and so I'm going to let Larry explain his presentation as to why this presents an extraordinary hardship. It's supposed to be based on the the physical property, physical conditions of the land, and also the alley is 16 feet, so if he can also speak to the emergency vehicles for that canal.
I'm Larry Smith. I'm civil engineer and agent for the project. As far as the waiver request,
So on this, you're dealing with with the applicant on
I'm
this,
dealing with the
not the
applicant on this one,
city.
yes, not for
Make
the
sure,
city.
man. Thank you.
The property was subdivided, I think in 1942, and the second subdivision was brought in 1946 that created that alley in the rear. And it is a 16-foot alley, and it is partially open to a point, and then the pavement just gets lost in debris, and it gets lost in overgrowth. So the burden that is on the client is he could come and ask for the city to open up the right-of-way. We can't tell if it has ever been opened, but there are 5 other lots that are served by that alley only. There's no other publicly maintained access to those other 5 lots. So I'm assuming at one point it was open, people purchased those lots, and there's nothing on them on today. Whether there was back in the 1940s, I can't speak to that. But what he's proposing is to put a 20-foot access easement going down this side. As far as Nancy's question about public fire access for the 16-foot alley, we're not proposing to do anything. I mean, we'd be more than happy for the city to open that alley, but we don't think that's in the city's best interest to open and maintain an alley for one developer. So instead of making that request, we're just requesting to put in a 20-foot access easement like it's done in several other places within the city. This would not be a unique situation for my client. It's been done throughout the city and previous subdivisions. I listed some of those in my waiver request that y'all can see. And everything else, the area dimensions, the lot width dimensions, everything else meets the zoning requirements.
So basically, they'd pull their garbage out to Mershon.
Yes.
The rear house, and that 20-foot access easement, they drive in and out, but that would be wide enough to get a fire truck
Correct.
to the back property.
I doubt they'd try to pull a fire truck. They'd probably just fight it from Mershon, the distance. But if Dan's here, we could ask him that question.
Bless you.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time, and we have more questions. This is a 2-lot minor subdivision over off of Mershon in Fairhope, over near the Burger King area. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir. I don't have my glasses on. Excuse me, sir. I can't see. Oh, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. I better start wearing my glasses. I can't read up close with my glasses. I can't see the
That's
back
all right.
without my glasses. If you'll state your name and your...
My name is Roy Parker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm adjacent to the lots that they're talking about.
Okay.
We have a problem with drainage already. And if you talk about putting 2 houses on the lot that he's talking about, making a small subdivision, I don't see how it's gonna work. Because everything else is flat. On my lot, next to him, his lot, I got poor drainage. Everything that come down from Young Street come down my way. Every bit of the water that runs down, run downhill. My lot is on this side, and my niece's lot, she had to leave. It's on the other side. He's in the middle. And I just want to show you something. And I've been there for quite a few years, been fussing over drainage ever since we've been there. Okay. Let me let you look at this.
Yes.
That's on right next to the lot that he's talking about building something. Okay, then the drainage across the street there, everything runs through my property. Okay, and everything drains this way. Order for him is, from putting 2 houses, what about the drainage? And then the drainage ditch across the street is all the way through. And then he talked about when he talking about putting 2 houses on that narrow lot, they must be talking about 2 stories. That's a narrow lot, and it's uphill, and he would have to build up. And I'm having enough problem with my drainage now.
Was that picture of today?
That's today.
Will you please hand this to Emily, our secretary, so she look at it and show it to the engineer as well?
And also, to build a house is good. 1 house. I can't see 2. I can't see 2 houses on that narrow lot in between us, and then you're talking about putting a 20-foot right-of-way in there. Where you gonna put it? The lot may be what? Maybe 30 feet wide, if it's that much, or a little bit wide.
Let's see here.
75.
75, okay. But I still don't see, I live in a house, it's 1 duplex. And if you want to build 1 duplex, it's well and good, but I just can't see another unit going out front. Where you gonna put the other unit? And we already got poor drainage, and been trying to get it fixed for years, you know. So if you're gonna do something, I mean, you know, I'm against the other house, and I'm gonna fight it, because what you're doing, the way I see it, if you give him this, then we're gonna be arguing back and forth as long as he's there, because if you give him this, he's gonna want more. That's the way I see it.
Are you on the north or the south side?
I'm on this side, which is north side.
All right.
And then my niece is on the other side.
Okay.
Okay?
Great. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and turn the meeting over to the commissioners.
Well, I will say, Larry, unlike the site plan we looked at just before this one, it didn't have any elevations on it. This one does happen to have elevations on it. And if you look at the building setback on what would be the front lot to Mershon, the majority of it's in the lowest part of the lot. And I went out there today too and looked at it, but in the 20-foot easement, if you have a 3-to-1 slope and you got to build it up maybe 2.5 or 3 feet, then you're looking at not much left than 20 foot to put the access road on, just looking at it.
Yeah.
Now, I know you can put some retaining walls and you can put some other stuff up there, and you may have already thought about all that, but.
Well, eventually it's going to be a residential, so they don't normally get into civil design on the residential house, but the residence that's just south, I'm imagining he'd have to do something very similar to that as far as their access road went, where they did put a wall and then put culverts to allow that drainage to flow through there. As you're saying, the low area will be within the front building setback area where the house is not going to be. Anyway, I'll let the client speak to the size of the houses and the nature of what he's wanting to do there. Does that answer
That's just
everything?
why, I'm just pointing out my observation of it all. It just looks like there's either a lot of fill to put in the house within the setback area, or you really don't have any place to build a house within the building setback.
Yeah, they'll have to fill just to meet the city requirement to be 18 inches above the road, which we've run into that on several residential lots.
What's the square footage of the home that can sit on that?
I'll let the client speak to the residential home size.
Hello, my name is Tom Manson, and I'm the owner of these properties here. And up to now, I haven't met Mr. Proctor yet, and but my intention is to build two, I guess, about 1,300 square foot patio-style homes on there, around about that, brick-faced, kind of fore and aft home as opposed to a left and right, I'm talking about. And obviously, I talked to Mr. Smith about drainage. I know I'm not a civil engineer, but actually went to school for that kind of stuff. And I know you cannot have your water run off on someone else's property, so we are addressing that issue on this. And what other questions can I answer for you?
Any other questions?
So my intent basically is to, at this point, is to sort of occupy the rear home and the front one to use as for mother-in-law, or rent it out for eventually to bolster my pension so I can continue to live in Fairhope and not have to move way out to the fields, but they're getting pretty expensive out there too. So that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm listening to the civil engineer on how to make it happen.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Commissioners, any further questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we would approve the applicant's request along with the recommendations made by our planning department.
I've got a motion to approve, subject to the staff recommendations. Do I have a second?
Does that include the waiver?
Staff recommendations, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, that does. Well, that's under the staff rec. All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second? All right, no second. Do I have a motion to deny in that case? Got to do something. Just got two options.
I mean, we know that it's already a water issue area. Looks like he's doing what he can. He's going to extra yards to control that. I don't feel like we can deny him the use of his land if he's trying to control the water issue. Unfortunately, that's a situation that, it's already been occurring. It's not something that he has made worse as of yet. So I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the staff recommendation goes, it does mention that the waiver would need to be approved by the Planning Commission. We didn't take a position on the waiver.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There's a motion to approve, subject to, and give the waiver. It does not have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, it does have a second. In that case, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay.
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 Okay. If you said nay, raise your hand, please. Okay, basically, this side. Yeah, George and David said, Ken, do we need a motion to deny at this point, or? I'm sorry. Okay, all right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is SD 1710. Nancy?
This is a public hearing to consider the request of Dewberry Privel-Rish for final plat approval of Phase 2 of Silverleaf at Firethorn. And this particular site is a part of a PUD and was already submitted prior to the moratorium. So, and there are some conditions of approval. The applicant has submitted some things, but at this time, until I have a chance to look at what they've submitted, they submitted some information this afternoon. I'd have to look at it before releasing those conditions.
Thank you, Nancy. Steve, are you here on behalf of the developer?
I am Steve Puffer with Dewberry Privel-Rish, and I'll just be quick. Of those 4 conditions, I can tell you that I personally have sent over to Nancy item number 1. The developer took care of number 2. The contractor took care of number 3. And our engineer sent a letter over to Nancy addressing all the punch list items. So I understand that Nancy obviously has to have the time to personally put her eyes on all of that, but I can tell you that they've been addressed. It's just a matter of her seeing it.
Thank you, Steve. We'll stay up front in case there are any questions. This is a public hearing. Would anybody from the public wish to speak to this? If not, I'll close the public hearing and turn the meeting over to the commissioners. Do I have any questions for the developer? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval dependent on conditions.
I've got a move for approval, subject to the conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda, corrected item F, SD 1711, Nancy?
Yes, again, this is a site, let's see, it's public hearing to consider the request of Dewberry Privel-Rish for final plat approval of Old Battles Village, Phase 2, a 21-lot subdivision. It's the same situation. It is a part of a planned unit development, and they were submitted prior to the moratorium. And there is a list of conditions. They submitted some things this afternoon. I have not had the opportunity this afternoon to look at them, so I'd need to do careful review of their conditions, but it's exactly like the last one.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Stephen, same response as last time, as this Groundhog Day?
Yeah, take myself out of the picture on this, and I didn't have to respond to one of these items. Our engineer did on the first, the contractor did on the second, and the developer did the third, and the fourth one's just a matter of recording a document. We understand when that time comes.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Would anybody wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and turn the meeting over to the commissioners. Commissioners, any questions or comments for the developer? If not, I'll accept a motion.
I'll move approval.
I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Stephen. Next item on the agenda, SD 1712. Nancy, you gonna get your legs tired jumping up and
I
down.
am. I feel like I'm at church. Okay, this is a public hearing to consider the request of civil engineer, SE Civil Engineering for final plat approval of Red Barn Road Estates, a 16-lot subdivision. There were just a couple things. One, on our final inspection, they had buffer signage that they had not installed at the time of our site visit, but they have since put that in. We did want a condition, a note on the plat referencing the buffer requirements, and he may have already submitted that. I don't know, did he submit that yet? Okay. So they're working on that, so.
Okay, thank you. Larry, you here on behalf of the developer?
We're fine with the final condition. It's just adding a note to the plat. The surveyor must have left that off of the final plat that was submitted because it was not a new comment by Nancy. So we'll get that added to the plat, and everything else, I believe, has been signed off.
looks nice out there. I like the
beautiful.
size of
Really
everything
nice.
out there.
Did I read somewhere that they were requiring extra fire hydrants along Red Barn Road or something?
But they did, and they've all been installed
They did?
and
Okay.
been signed off by Dan.
That's nice. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. Would anybody wish to speak to this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing and turn the meeting over to the commissioners.
A motion we approve as presented.
I've got a motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Let's go ahead and give David the second down there. And any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Last item on the agenda is SR 1701. I should say the last item on the regular agenda. We do have a piece of new business.
Okay, this is a request of Century Construction for site plan approval of the Eastern Shore Healthcare Advocacy Building. And this is a part of what was known as the Dias Professional Village PUD. And you'll see the plan laid out there. They are just building one building as a part of that. There were some minor conditions. One thing that was not, they requested the lighting be taller because on one of the other buildings, when it was installed, the lighting was greater than the PUD. We're not sure why that happened. However, we felt like they need to stay consistent with the PUD. It was, when Jonathan approved the PUD, he did mention that the lighting should be consistent with the PUD. This is on the building, they put the taller lights in. So we're not sure why that happened, but we want to stay consistent. And also, the third thing was the signage shall be as per the PUD, and they'll do that under a separate permit.
Thank you. Would anybody here like to speak on behalf of the developer?
Good evening. I'm Laura Tinsley, and I represent Century Construction. We're a design-build contractor, and we're here speaking on behalf of the owner. And basically, we're just building a building here within the professional village, within the PUD. The only thing that we are kind of asking about is the lighting. So the PUD requires 8-foot-tall streetlights, which are shorter than that door. So just from a security standpoint and just, reasonable, trying to find a light fixture that does that is kind of hard. So Trustmark Bank is right next door. Within the plans, we've also submitted a photometric plan that shows that there would be no light pollution to any of the neighboring lots. So we're just trying to kind of keep a cohesiveness with that development to use the standard 25-foot light fixtures just within our property and making sure that our lights stay there on our property for security. So that's really all we have.
I think I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and if y'all stay up front, any questions we have, I'll make a list of them.
It's not a public
No, it's not a public, excuse me, this is site plan. I would like to if anybody in the public would like to speak to this, though, even though it's not a public hearing, I'd like to give you your opportunity.
Chairman, on the lighting issue, there's, the PUD in its conditions mentions the 8-foot high light pole, basically. I think it's for spillover into the neighboring property owners. As Nancy mentioned, I think there's an adjoining property in the PUD that has lighting that's taller than the 8 feet. And again, not sure when that occurred, but that's the dilemma I think that the applicant's in. We have requirements of the PUD, it says 8 feet. However, the neighboring property is greater than 8 feet. So that's kind of where they're coming from with that request. Okay. Just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about with that.
Thank you. All right, would anybody in the audience have any questions or concerns, like to speak to this item? All right, commissioners?
The only access to this is off Gayfer?
There's also access to the
Gayfer,
south.
Edwards. What's that one to the south, Edwards? or-
South, I think it's Edwards.
Yes?
Yes, sir, you can.
has
It
an
is
access
Edwards.
road that runs along.
Rear
Yeah,
of the
that's what it
property.
appears.
kind of where the Homestead Village is, there's a road
Yeah, it goes right
just north of the Homestead Village that
Yeah,
you
I
can
got it.
access either side.
Okay.
There's a light on that corner, Lee, and you're close to the bank. And are you going to cut the curbing there for them to go through the front part of the building?
No, it's going to be, the only access will be to Gayfer or Edwards, and then they would drive that road.
Edwards is, okay, there's traffic in there. There'll be traffic inside of that for two banks. Because there's another bank, Continental is there, or Centennial.
Centennial's there, a couple banks are on that.
Yeah, a
This will
couple
be
of
about the
banks are
fourth
there.
or fifth.
This may clear
Is
it up.
anything else going on in those lots there?
This may clear it up. Does that make sense? This is Edwards.
Yeah,
These are Arbor Gates apartment.
that's right.
And so this is Gayford. So, and their access is this road.
Only the road to Edwards.
There's a slight variation to the building, but on both of these buildings, they're not quite at the angle they should be.
So it'll be two banks and the medical.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the one concern I have about the lighting, and I hate to beat a dead horse with the lighting issue, but as part of the approved PUD, this is the language that says for lighting, and this is part of the standards of approval that were given. It says, "The light standard shall be no taller than the fence to be constructed at the rear property line." And so that's where the 8-foot limitation comes in, because the fence is 8 feet. And so that, again, it says, "The light standard shall be no taller than the fence to be constructed at the rear property line," which is 8 feet, which then provides that limitation for the 8 feet in height. And that's a requirement of the PUD. Don't know how that would be waived, or could it be waived, and those kind of things. That's a bit of a concern of ours, that we're not, if we were to go above that, we'll not be compliant with the PUD, unless there's some sort of provision you can
I researched the bank site plan for this as well, and Jonathan Smith, the previous planning director, had written on the plan that they shall be compliant with the lighting, so it must have happened after the fact.
Yeah.
Because he
And I
stuck
believe
with
that-
the PUD.
And I believe the bank has the traditional, 20 or 25-foot light pole.
I'll get my BB gun out this afternoon, and we'll take care of that.
Just one question. Wayne, one specific thing, given that I come from a medical family, jumped out at me, how the medical waste is going to be handled.
Right, and I think Nancy mentioned that in her.
Those are very strict federal standards on something like that.
Right.
You need to have some kind of certification.
No, they said they want to use garbage cans in the back, and I just wanted to have in writing for staff that, how they intended to handle the medical waste, just to kind of verify.
Normally, you contract with the disposal service. to
Right.
handle it.
Right, but I just wanted them to respond to us in writing on that.
And the applicant has indicated that that's their plan, is to contract with a disposal
So
service.
you'd have to, along with the rest of the permits that you'd get something that specified that.
Right,
We all thank you.
yes, sir.
Make sure there's any further questions. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the staff recommendations.
Second.
I have a motion. Let's give Charles Johnson a second on that. Emily, any further discussion?
I would just encourage the contractor to look at the drainage and the slopes that are provided and raise it a little bit and drain. It's really flat, and, I mean, that's just my observation of what I would do if I were y'all.
Telling from experience. First man I ever built my concrete, guys told me, he said, "I never had anybody complain about being too dry." So, anyway, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
back to the Manson subdivision that disapproved a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
This is a procedural matter. I want to be sure that the secretary had a sufficient understanding of the basis of the disapproval.
Almost won
so
by
she could
Chicago
put it in the
National
minutes.
League champion.
So a letter
World
could be
Series
written to
champion.
the applicant and then inquire about the regulations.
If I'd have remembered that you were from Chicago, I would have done it.
think there was concern about the rear access and the drainage, elevations of the rear lot. Is that correct? With the
I
five?
would say there'd been maybe one issue or the other rather than both issues combined.
That's why I was speaking of the request for y'all to provide a reason for denial.
Next item on the agenda is, well, I think we could just say we denied it due to the fact it didn't meet the subdivision regulations, couldn't we?
Yes, they also requested a waiver, which the waiver wasn't granted either. So the waiver itself
I mean,
was...
the lot doesn't have access to a frontage road. That's a subdivision, an item that our subdivision requirement says it didn't meet that, so I think we could just,
I think that there's probably a use for 2 really nice patio homes there. I think that that would be a great place. I'm concerned with an influx of water that's already there. I think that, I don't know how to address that. And then, of course, the easement is the main issue.
I didn't talk, but I don't know if y'all want me to talk at this point. That's why I was curious what the reason for denial was. The home will fit on 30 feet of that deck, and that was all going to be pushed back to the rear. Didn't get a chance to get a reason for denial.
You said that it didn't meet the subdivision regulations.
yeah, I mean, it didn't, to me, it didn't meet, I mean, Ken, I don't know what kind of requirement we need to give it. It didn't meet the subdivision regs, and I didn't see where it'd be in the best community interest to approve that item or where that would help the community. And if it doesn't meet the subdivision regs and the community's not getting anything for it, I don't see where, I mean, unless you tell me.
That would be a reason, the regulations require simply that the reasons for the disapproval be provided to the applicant. It doesn't say how much specificity, but it should have enough specificity they should understand the actual reason you're disapproving.
I mean, we've got 5 people who could vote. One person may think it's because of the access, another may think it's water, and another may say because it doesn't open on a public road.
But some combination of things cause the commission to deny approval or disapprove.
Well, we don't just have to put one, do we? I mean, we could put.
You could put a
combination of reasons, concerned about water in the rear, access to the rear lot, and the rear lot doesn't have frontage access.
But I also feel like if I knew how that water was going to be contained, it would have changed my decision.
That's why I was asking about the reason for denial. If I would have known, I could have answered the question.
Sorry.
I'm used to a motion for denial coming up, so where we have that chance, not the denial being based on everyone, not saying yay for the approval.
Yeah, I mean, I get concerned. I mean, every meeting we have lots like this, minor subdivisions with no water retention, and, this one doesn't even meet, 3 or 4 requirements. It doesn't meet the width of the first lot, doesn't meet the width, it doesn't have frontage, it's got water issues in the back, it doesn't have rear access for the fire department. So, I mean, there are half dozen reasons to deny it. My question is why approve it, other than we got somebody that wants to make more money on its lot, and we're dumping more houses in an area where we've already been told, it's too dense. So, yeah, so I'm just saying,
But it does meet the width, it does meet the depth, it's the.
Well, you take 20 feet off, you got 55 feet left. If you take 20 off the side for the easement, you got 55 left, which isn't the 75 feet width requirement.
And if anybody parks in that alley.
But anyway, all right, last item on the agenda, under new business, Chris Lieb of Lieb Engineering would like to discuss a proposed site plan for a almost 10,000 square foot medical clinic on US Highway 98. Wayne, do you have anything to say Wayne, do you have anything you want to say on this before the informal, or do you just want to let them go?
No, sir. We did not provide any review of it. I thought tonight would be, with an informal review, just getting the comments back from the planning commission. Anything that stuck out in your mind that you want them to address before we actually do the full-blown review and submit. I believe you guys have already submitted for the May agenda.
And you told me that this is on the May agenda, right?
It is, that's right. And I think what they're looking for tonight is just get feedback, any concerns you may have, be it drainage, whatever it is, so they can have a chance to maybe work around that if there's some big issues that come up tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what we're proposing here is there's 4 individual lots that we're going to combine into one. It is a current subdivision, and what we were planning on doing was putting a medical clinic here. So what I've come to talk to you about is the requirements are only 1 access per lot. And we're requesting to have 2 on our plans that have been submitted, and wanted to get your feedback on that. But what I wanted to say was this was originally 4 lots. So there could have been 4 accesses to this access road, and we're not even accessing Highway 98. It's just an access road for this subdivision. It's just north of the State Farm and just south of the orthotics building. We are going to have an above-ground stormwater detention on site. We're going to meet the requirements for pervious paving, compact car spaces. We're going to have some stone paving in the back, and those sorts of things. So we just wanted to come up here and get your thoughts on this, and if you had any qualms or questions about it before the official meeting next month.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for the developer? He's up here.
Is this just before the McDonald's?
No, sir.
Am I in the right location?
It's, do you know where Old Time Feed is?
Yeah.
You go south, it's Fairhope Tire, then you keep going south about 2 or 3 more lots. There's a new orthotics building, and then this is that vacant area right in there.
Mr. Chairman, I'm familiar with the site, and I think this is a good use, combining those lots, and it will save multiple buildings being put on several lots, and be able to have one building there and control the drainage on that whole area. And there's an access road there too, so I like that. I think it's a good project, looks good.
I feel like it's part of those nodes that I was talking about. There's several like uses around there that would complement.
There's no kind of zoning?
It's actually unzoned piece of property. There are covenants for the subdivision, which, one is that it has to meet the B1 zoning, but this is not, it's contingent, it's an exceptional use for the B1. However, this is unzoned. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing here.
Well, our city consultants say that we really need to do everything we can to keep the medical industry as close to, the hospital in Greeno Road as we can, and not up in Daphne or Spanish Fort. So we appreciate you certainly looking at Fairhope and locating in Fairhope, doing that. It's very appreciated.
Why would you not have one central driveway to go around rather than having 2?
I can speak to that. My name is Dylan Wells. I'm one of the physicians at what is currently Medical Park OB-GYN, and we serve Thomas Hospital exclusively.
Can you step up to the mic?
Yes, sir, sure. Sorry. My name is Dylan Wells. It's 857 Seacliff Drive, if we're taking addresses. One of the physicians at Medical Park OB-GYN here in Fairhope. We serve Thomas Hospital exclusively, along with Dr. Mary Wells, Dr. Leslie Evans, Dr. Gary Nelson, and our partner, Dr. Richard Rowe. Brief history, oldest and largest OB-GYN group here serving Thomas Hospital, and the capacity for our need simply is overwhelming. We're currently 5 physicians working in an office that's probably built for 3. And with the new labor and delivery at Thomas Hospital that some of you may be aware of, scheduled to open this summer and is on track for that, the need for greater capacity for OB-GYN care has prompted us to have to move off-site to a larger site. The site is not only larger, but the building would be about an additional 25% to 30% larger than what we have. And I didn't think I was going to speak to the medical overlay tonight, but based on some previous comments at tonight's meeting, I feel like I probably should add something, is that we actually have looked at what I understand is the medical overlay near Thomas, and most of that area is inhabited by people in residential buildings, and none of them are particularly interested in moving, and we don't want to move them out of their homes. So we elected to find a larger lot that we could build on that was prepared to take this was zoned correctly, and we feel it is very important to stay close to the hospital. We're OBGYNs, and we have to be in a very close proximity. So this fits
So
our
would
needs.
you have one of these entrances, the one way going in and the other one going around?
Yes, sir, you asked me that.
Because otherwise it doesn't work.
Right. To answer your question directly is that based on what we do, the physicians need to have ready access, basically out of our clinic, to immediately go to Thomas Hospital and deliver babies
So
or
it's
chaplains.
one in, around, and out.
It's going to be dead, I think you're going to have it listed, and Chris could speak to which way it goes out, but we're going to sign it in such a way that it encourages patients not to block that area. So when we need to leave quickly in the middle of the day, we can get out through that northern access point. But again, it is to an access road.
chaos if you were going in two directions.
Yes, sir. So we've tried to design it in such a way that the physicians could get in and out quickly, but then the patients also have a way to circulate around the building as
Okay.
necessary, along with delivery trucks and,
That's the limit of my knowledge on that.
yes, sir.
I think you can create just as much chaos by having them offset just a little bit from the drive you're coming out to Greeno Road on. Is there any way to manage that a little bit better?
They were hoping.
Well, we're kind of pinned in on our lots, because the access is right there on the lot line, and you have to have your radius, and you can't put your radius over on somebody else's property. So, we tried to locate them best we could for the building and circulation internally on the site. But yes, I agree, it's not the best situation. However, it's the best one that we saw we could come up with.
I mean, Wayne, do you know of any provisions, and you said it wasn't zoned, is that what I heard?
That's correct, it's
This
unzoned.
is not in the city then, or?
It is in the
It
city.
is in the city.
Well, I
Yes, sir.
thought it was an R1, no?
An R1, I don't.
What's the current zoning of it now? I'm not.
It's not.
B1 and B4.
Well, no, it's
So it's an unincorporated Baldwin County.
it's in the city limits, but it's unzoned.
You can't.
It's got to be zoned. If it's in the city, it's got to be zoned.
Yeah.
But I'm just, is there some offset requirements in the zoning about driveways coming into streets that have intersections within a distance of that driveway?
I would need to look at, Richard, would need to look at the requirements for that. Off the top of my head, I don't know what they are. But we need to look at that.
And I'm not, saying anything, it's just, I've driven a lot, in a lot of parking
Yeah,
lots.
if
And if one
this-
thing aggravates me as much as anything, it's having to turn and see somebody else coming into a place where you're kind of caught off guard.
If this fronts on Greeno Road, then AlDOT will control the access permits.
Well, now, that access is there.
Yes.
But
Okay.
what we're talking about is once you get on the service road, where the proper location of the driveway going into the office complex would be,
Off the service road.
off the service road.
Okay. We can look into that before the May meeting. We'll look into that and make sure we get that question answered for you and provide that guidance of that criteria if we have it. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but we can certainly look at it.
There are two homes there now, aren't there?
No, sir, it's currently a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Four vacant lots.
Next door to you. He's south and north of you.
The northern property is the old Southside Business Park, incorporated in 1995, and these was encompass lots 2 through 5 of that business park. Lot 1 is currently being constructed upon by an orthotics clinic. Lot 6 is occupied by Rick Pfeiffer's office, State Farm. There is a neighborhood behind that, and then
I
there's a
see.
dental office even on the other side of that
Yes.
access point. So this, to Ms. McKellar's point, this appears to be all, professionally business related. And to the point of where the northern drive access is, there are 2 legacy trees on either side of that access. One is a pecan and one is an oak. So not only being more convenient for physicians, there are only so many places we can put that without driving directly into the front of the clinic. So, and to kind of accent the building, we actually designed that around those trees.
Excuse me, thank you. All right, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne, any more old or new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I did have something to say real quick. I just glad to have Richard and Charles on board with us, but I also wanted to at least publicly thank Bob and thank Bernie for their service. They did a lot of good up here, and they were here for quite a while. I've only been here 4 months, and I learned from them, so I appreciate their time.
Thank you, Jimmy. I stand remiss. I didn't mention that earlier. Thank you. I agree. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Non-debatable.
Non-debatable.